And that's why Jesus said that the priests were cursed, because if the priests are no longer pure, then the whole system collapses. Because if you no longer have a pure link with the higher worlds, then you've got all these beings coming out of the ground and want to possess you and enter you. So what happened? That there was this currency, but they were kings. Is that a good thing? Well, yes, because it materialized. The invisible, it materialized good. Wealth, exchange, sharing, communication, trade. Les échanges, le partage, la communication, le commerce. You saw they said fair trade. Their story is so heavy, it would mean there's fair trade, and trade that isn't fair, so it's theft. But all trade is fair. Trade in itself is the economy, it's exchanges, it's everything that's beautiful. I produce something and I offer it, and in reality it circulates. And if you go to India, it's magnificent, because in India there's not really any electronic money, no checks. It's really money that passes from hand to hand. Gabriel's cash is much better than virtual money because, first of all, I can't say it, but you can read my mind. Money that passes from hand to hand, you know who it goes to. Whereas otherwise you don't know. Here you are, and that creates proximity. It creates links and contacts. It's nothing but happiness, don't you think? Afterwards, well, slowly but surely royalty collapsed. You had the Cathars. On earth, that was a defining moment in the history of that era of what we experienced was worldwide. The Cathars were a splendor on earth, a marvel, a surge of Christianity to bring beauty to the angelic world. You know, the Cathars were in the caves of the Rees. These beings renounced everything, not because they renounced, but because they awakened the superior worlds within them. And they were in a blissful state within themselves. It was happiness. It was like a garden of light. It was pure love. It had an influence, and besides Occitania, where there were the Cathars, was flourishing, and you could see the trade was intense, because there's faith, because there's enthusiasm, because there's good laws, because there's freedom, because in the end you can trade, because in the end wealth is happiness, it's sharing, it's love. Parce qu'en fin de compte on peut commercer, parce qu'en fin de compte la richesse c'est le bonheur, c'est le partage, c'est l'amour. It's greatness, it's God's reality that appears. These beings arrived and eradicated. They killed. It's a genocide. A genocide then, before recognizing the genocide in Armenia, who already recognized their own genocide here. Then there were the Templars. And then there was the great calamity, the French Revolution. It's worldwide. It's the world. The French Revolution. It's an abomination. It's an alcoholic husband, a pedophile, a prostitute mother who sells her children and her children's organs. It's the French Revolution. It's the great misfortune. It's the curse of curses. It's something despicable. From the moment there was the French Revolution, there was Napoleon Bonaparte who arrived. War non-stop, war from Napoleon Bonaparte onwards. That war started to happen, war never stopped, and their beings took over. The money, then they began to say, because it was necessary to finance, so they began to say, understand what I'm telling you here. The archangel isn't talking about it, and he said there's no problem. I'm telling you this so that you understand, and to stop you from complaining and asking for more and more and more slavery. These beings got hold of the money. How they did it? Because it's a superior intelligence of evil. It's really an intelligence. These beings said that's it, because you have to understand that everything negative in life always comes from the light. And in reality, because these dark beings have no intelligence and no existence of their own, the only thing they can produce and do is dissonance. That's their power. But they can't create harmony, because to create harmony they would have to go to higher worlds. But they don't want to go to higher worlds. They want to exist even though they have no existence of their own. And to exist they have to steal. It's up to man not to make them appear, because when man makes them appear, these beings want to live, and so they want to continue to exist, and they have no other way of existing than to enslave man. So their sole aim is to enslave man. Once that's clear, you know who you're dealing with. Is that negative? No, you simply have to leave them where they are. How did they do it? Well, they saw what the Cathars did, because it was the Cathars who showed them. And so they took it for themselves. They always do that. It's incredible. Love comes and tells us what to do. We don't want it. So the darkness comes and takes the teaching of love and makes it come true, and then we agree, because the ingenious thing about darkness is that it says, we'll do the work for you. And love always says, you're the one who has to do the work. What did the Cathars do? The Cathars were so honest that people had money on them, gold, because that's how it was in those days. And so they went from one place to another, and there were bandits. That was before radar. And so you could get robbed on the road. And so to protect them, they would say, give me your gold, your silver, and I'll give you a piece of paper with my signature and acknowledgement that you gave me this money. You're traveling, the brigands are coming here, here's the paper, it's worthless, the paper's worthless, the brigands won't want it, so you can't get robbed. And when you get to the other town, you go and see a Cathar, and you give him the paper, he'll see that it's a Cathar who signed it, and he'll give you the gold. But how does it work? Well, it works through trust, through honesty, through purity. You see, the spirit that arrives makes a false paper. You see right away. But if I do that, I'll break everything. I'll bring darkness into life, and the system based on purity and honesty will no longer work. You hear? You see how silly it is, how simple it is, how we go through it every day, how it's a question of education, and how we can be led into slavery, because it may be that he says, you think you're going to have something good, you're going to gain something, but you've already lost, my friend. Ah, yes, but I've gained things that don't belong to you, that will never belong to you, and you're going to lose everything, and when you die, you'll have nothing, and even before that, you'll already have nothing. Your whole world will be degraded. Yes, but I'm going to live, you're going to live in dissonance. Well, go and explain that now, because it's the whole world that's fallen under these worlds there. Well, there'll be work to do. That's what the Cathars did. So it took a really long time for intelligence to say, we're going to bank some gold, a gold reserve, and we'll issue papers. and we'll say that paper has value. Faith, people didn't believe in it. At first they said, what's paper? But that's no good or something. What we want is something real. Gold is no more real than the faith they had. But it was real even today. Gold has phenomenal power. So they tried, and after a while, well, they succeeded. And they started issuing papers. And you had this paper, you went to a reserve and asked for the gold, and they gave it to you. And then at some point they said, well, the paper no longer corresponds to the gold. And you can no longer have gold with paper. So how much is paper worth? Well, gold doesn't matter, but that's fairly recent. It's the great world wars in reality. These wars were not why they took place. For that, they didn't want to take territories. No, they wanted to set up a banking system and ultimately grab the money bucket. Who's filled with greed? Greed, a kind of vampire, a monster in the end, well, a demon. And well, it was to think, who's going to care? Who's 1,000 deaths, 10,000 deaths to achieve his goals? They don't give a damn. What's the value of the human being? Zero. What is the value of the soul? Zero. What is the value of the animal? Who cares? What we want is something from a power of the soul of faith, that we're adored, that we enter this world and take the place of God. So in reality, these beings, what did they say? They said, here it is. There's gold, there's money now, there's no more gold, and it's paper. And who guarantees this paper? Well, it's the state. What they've done, and the state guarantees the value of the paper, and now the state has just withdrawn and no longer guarantees it. Okay, let me explain. I want to buy a house. In reality, it's already a bad idea to build a house yourself with your friends. And the problem is that it's becoming illegal. Why? Why? For your safety. So I'm a moron, so my grandfather was a moron. No, to each his own, you do what you're told. It's out of the question for you to live like that. Like growing your own garden is no good. And so on and so forth. Like natural spring water is illegal. I guarantee why it's not controlled. We didn't put anything in it. It's worthless. Like rabbits, like nature, they've poisoned the rabbits. Why no VAT values added to the rabbits, i.e. taxes? You buy a house worth 100,000 euros. You don't have it. You go to the bank, because here you see it's individual, and here it's universal, which means that here you're in your body and you're having experiences, but when you die, you're going to lose your body, and when you lose your body, it's like turning inside out your pants or your jacket, you know? It's exactly this experience of turning inside out, and the jacket is inside out. And when you die, you find yourself inside out, right side up. And in the end, what you saw from your point of view, who was coming towards you or you were going towards, well, in the end, it's the universe you're looking at from the universe's point of view. It's a completely different vision. You only see things with which you have an affinity, and money is no different. You go to your banker, you say, I need a loan of 100,000 euros. He tells you why to buy a house. He's interested in that. Because a house has a guarantee. They love that. After, he'll say, give me some guarantees. Well, you're going to start giving him things And then he'll say, okay, I'll give you your loan, because he has instructions. Basically, he doesn't give a damn about guarantees, because he doesn't care if you pay it back or not. You still have to be in agreement. And then he says, I'm going to apply an interest rate. I'll lend you 100,000. You give me back 200,000. Yes, that's about it. And stop the 4% and all that stuff. So in the end, what happens? Don't lose track of everything I've told you before. How does the banker go about giving you 100,000? Well, he's got 100,000. Well, yes, he does. Well, he does because people put money in, so he takes other people's money and lends it to me. It's like a game. No, it's not like that at all. Well, then he's got money in a general bank with gold. No, it's not like that. So how does he do it? Well, it's so simple. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's Christians. It's faith. It's the multiplication of the roles. You know how he does it. He takes your account, there's nothing there, and he says, 100,000, that's it? 100,000, but where they are well nowhere. He just wrote 100,000, but that's not possible. Well, it is, since there's no more gold reserve. The banknote is worthless. But so a banker just has to write 100,000, and I've got 100,000. Yes, that's money. But there's something wrong. It's not possible, something like this. Well, that's money. Money is the invisible thing that gives value to things. It's God in the end. Well, that's God, we agree. I get 100,000. Is this system good? Yes. Look at, I get 100,000 that have been created. I'm going out great, I've had my loan, so already there's joy. But in reality, we agree that as an Essene, it's not a good joy. It's like a feverish feeling after drinking a little alcohol. It's a copulation and orgy. Orgy. That's what alcohol is. It's full of copulating particles when you drink it. It excites you. And so, I go home happy. I invite my whole family to the restaurant. I go to the restaurant and pay with money that didn't exist 10 minutes ago. But now it's there, it turns into pizza. The restaurant owner is happy. His employees are happy. The money circulates, the money reaches the social side and makes people happy because it circulates. And that people can live, and that in the end this money will multiply, passing from hand to hand and bringing happiness. That's where the problem lies. It's not about creating money in this way, because if it's mastered, it's great. It's an ingenious system. The problem is the 100,000 of interest, because in reality, it's not true what I told you. The banker didn't draw the money from nothing. Where did he get it from? He got it from you. In other words, at the end of the day, it's your money. It's you, it's your soul. Because at the end of the day, your soul has value, and it's your commitment. You mean your commitment to pay him back and work for him for 10 years. You belong to him, you've given yourself to him and signed a pact. A covenant, committing you to repay him or be seized. And he takes this paper and files it And then he comes from nothing. You hear from nothing, from you, from your soul, from what we don't see in you from God, from what we don't see in you from your spirituality, from your soul, from what animates you. He has just created from you 100,000 and 200,000. And he's just put them in and he's archiving them, and then he goes to higher worlds and he says, I have a soul. It's worth 200,000, and then he starts making what we call gambling bets and speculating on your ability to pay it back, and all that speculation. La spéculation sur toi, sur ta capacité de le rembourser, tout ça, il spécule. It's not money that comes from work. It's not money that comes from production. It's totally, I don't know how to explain it. It's incredible that humans accept this. As they say in Quebec, we're being screwed. Ah, well, it couldn't be more, so that's why all this is now called socialist gaiety. But this is really it. We're right in the middle of it. It's the Mont Blanc tunnel. It's under the sleeve. They're making tunnels everywhere now. They're digging. They're looking for treasures. It's mining companies. I don't know what they're doing. That's pretty much the idea. So it's your commitment, it's you who has value, it's still beautiful. As soon as you've repaid your debt, the money the banker had created disappears. So the money the banker loses, in the end the banks are rich in debt. And they're poor when you pay them back because they tear up the paper. You no longer belong to them, they've lost their soul. So they'll do anything to make you go back into debt. Because as long as you're in debt, they're rich. The problem is that you've repaid 200,000. You want to sell your house, it's 200,000. Someone buys it for 200,000. Then someone else buys it for 400,000. Where have these 200,000 gone? The 200,000 you paid back to the bank have disappeared. All right, you understand more or less how it works. It's faith. If there's no more faith, the whole system collapses. And who guarantees faith? The states. Let's talk about the states. They've replaced the kings who were in the name of God, and they've said to themselves, well, we don't need God. It'll be in the name of the people. And so, in reality, they are the representatives of the masses. So in the end, they have capital. The banker has capital, so you have to push open the door and ask for a loan, but the state is a registry, it's compulsory, you have to be registered, and as soon as you're registered, there's a paper. And then they work their magic. They say this person has to do this, has to do that. That's why there's an education, that's why, because you have to go straight, because in reality you're mortgaged. Because what do? The states, it's completely delirious, because imagine, you've understood the power of the banker. But the state, it has this power. The state, what it does is manufacture the money it has guaranteed. It makes as much money as it wants. As much money as it wants, but these beings through war, through all these revolutions and wars, have seized power from kings and states in the name of God to finally take all this for themselves and start forbidding states to produce their own money and forcing states to borrow money. From banks and investment funds such as AXA Assurance and Allianz. Alliance, can you believe it? Your insurance companies and mutual insurance companies, which are there to guarantee your security, take money and give it back to the state, which is us, at interest. and it all disappears. There's no control. France is in debt to the tune of 2,000 billion of euros. Any father, mother, or company director would be imprisoned.